You have before you two option one requests for waivers of the basic education requirement of a minimum 180-day school year. The requests are from Kelso and Tacoma school districts. Cascade School District also submitted an application that's in your packet, but prior to this meeting, Cascade contacted staff and said that they were withdrawing the application. So they will follow up through other means later on with the requests that they have, and I'll be glad to talk with members about that. Beginning on page 129 of your packet, you'll find a memorandum summarizing the request for option one waivers and the one request for a option two economy and efficiency waiver. The Kelso and Tacoma applications are behind the memo in your packet. For each, you'll be asked to evaluate the need for a waiver based on the criteria established in rule. That rule is on page 167 of your packet, and decide tomorrow whether to grant the request. Kelso seeks renewal for 3 years of the waiver of 1 day that was granted to it by the board in 2012. This is a waiver of 1 day for what they term a transition day at the beginning of the school year for the 6th and 9th grade students as they move to middle school and high school. For these grades, the day is used for a variety of activities that help to ease or intended to ease the transition to their new schools, and students in other grades would not be attending on that day. Kelso submitted a calendar, which is in your additional materials packet, but it doesn't designate what the waiver day would be. They sent me a revised calendar that shows that August 31st would be the waiver day. The measurable goals of the waiver are to improve attendance, reduce discipline problems, referrals, suspensions, and expulsions, increase grade point averages and course completions, and increase graduation rates. The activities to be undertaken on the transition day are well described in the application to you. They've been modified somewhat over the term of the waiver. The district says as they found what kinds of activities were more effective than others in preparing students to better make the transition to new levels of schools, and they say that moving forward this would continue to be a dynamic thing under a renewed waiver. They'd be continually reviewing what they do and look to see what's most effective in reaching their goals. They would use student and parent surveys as well as student data related to attendance, discipline, course completion, and graduation rates to measure the effectiveness of the transition day in meeting their educational goals. In Part B of the application document, page 151 of your packet, Kelso discusses specifically the degree to which the goals of the prior waiver plan have been met. It says that they've seen a decrease in the number of disciplines and out-of-school suspensions and expulsions. They've seen some improvement in attendance, but that's rather mixed by school. They didn't see the progress in the first year of the waiver. They're seeing some more progress in the succeeding years. They can't point easily to increases in grade point average, but they point out that some drop was expected in grade point averages as they transition to Common Core standards. And this gets to that old question of to what extent can you correlate the use of a waiver with particular goals for improvement in student achievement when there are so many other things going on at the same time. As an empirical matter, that's just hard to do. On page 153 of your packet, they provide a series of charts. It is page 153, isn't it? Which they call transition indicators. It's absence rates, discipline referrals, grade point average, and graduation rates by school and the high school. This is a waiver that the board saw in 2012. I think the measure is how well they describe what they're doing under the waiver and how successful that they state they have been under it. So let's move to Tacoma. Tacoma currently has a district-wide waiver of 2 days. It was granted by the board in November of 2012. It also has a separate waiver for 2 of the high schools in the district. These 2 waiver days are referred to as data days by the district. And they use these data days for teachers to learn about and examine data, and using that data to create plans to increase student achievement, individualized lesson plans, interventions, data-driven efforts to improve student achievement. In the request before you, Tacoma requests 4 waiver days for 3 years to expand the time that they spend during the school year with these data, the data analysis and development of plans from the data. The days they would use are being developed, but they would be at intermittent, really regular points during the course of the school year. And because this is a waiver requesting 4 days rather than 2 days, although the activities are similar to those before, we've treated this as a new waiver application, not as a renewal, and so therefore did not request from the district the information that a renewal of a waiver has to be. What is a renewal? What is new? There's a certain amount of gray area on that. Tacoma describes in some detail the professional development activities that they will conduct on each of the 4 waiver days during the school year, and about at what point in the school year they would be doing each of those. Again, each day would be focused on the use and analysis of student achievement data, not just actually looking at the data itself and drawing inferences and conclusions from it, but training the staff in how to use this data, which you often read is a gap for many of the districts out there. Tacoma provides a link to the system the district has developed that can be accessed at the school and district level, and through it the staff are able to connect student data to measurable goals to build intervention plans and lesson plans. I've gone into the system. It's a fairly easy one to navigate. It is tied to the district and school improvement plans, in which there are goals and benchmarks set out, so the district facilitates the ability to link student progress, student achievement to those benchmarks and goals in the district improvement plan. It does require going onto that website and spending a little bit of time to see what those measurable goals and benchmarks are and how they're used during the data days. Tacoma also provides, I think it's on page 159 of your packet, a detailed listing of both the formative and the summative assessments that will be used at each of the grade levels to collect evidence of the degree to which the educational goals of the waiver have been attained. On page 159, they discuss an assessment bank that they have developed. And I don't have quite the expertise to understand well enough what the assessment bank is, but they say this is a common assessment bank that are item specific and linked to the standards. Allows us to create common formative assessments that can be personalized to the student and allow us to track individual student progress. They discuss the staff support for the waiver plan, the way that the waiver days have been embraced by administrative and certificated staff at Tacoma. And there will not be a representative of Tacoma School District here tomorrow, but the contact person for the district says that any questions about the waiver application that members have, she will be sitting by the phone, not literally, but will be available by phone or email to answer any questions that members of the board may have. And with that, I will wrap up on the two option one applications before us. And with leave of the chair, move on to the option two, or would you like to see what questions there are?
Questions
Sure.
right now. Holly, Deborah?
So, in the Tacoma application, I think if I'm reading this correctly, the request is for 4 days, and in the past they have had 2 days, in all of their schools, but in their alternative high schools, they've had 20 days in the past, and this will be reducing those 20 days to 4.
No, not correct.
Okay, that's why good thing I asked.
Right, no, it's a very good
Yeah.
question. Tacoma has two option one waivers. They had the one waiver that was district-wide, have the one waiver district-wide, all schools for 2 days to be used for these data days. In addition, the two alternative high schools in Tacoma, the School of the Arts and the School of Science and Math Institute. I have to remember what SOTA and SAMI stand for in each case. Tacoma has a separate waiver of 20 days for those two schools. And I asked the district whether it will be seeking a renewal of the waiver of 20 days that the district has for those two schools, and the answer was yes, that they will be. And so the board can expect that at the July meeting.
Deborah?
On page 160, I guess my question is following on Holly's question. The waiver days, additional teacher work days without students, those 2 days, are those waiver days that we granted? I'm confused.
Are they replacing, that was my question.
Yeah,
Are they replacing
well-
the 2 days with the 4, or they added 4 days to it?
Right, and you ended up with 6.
They would be adding 2 because they currently have the 2 waiver
Okay.
days. This is a request for 4 waiver days. And as I read this table, there is an additional 2 work days for staff without students.
Can I just ask you to clarify that with the district contact? That's not clear at all to me,
Okay.
at all.
Cindy, and then Holly, and then
Looking at that chart, I'm reading that students are in school with teachers 176 days. They're asking for 4 waiver days to do the data analysis, and they pay for 2 additional days, bringing the total for teachers up to 182 days.
Yeah, 182 contract
Okay.
days.
So
contract.
students still get 176 days with teachers in their classroom.
Right, and the 4 waiver days, if granted by the board, would then bring them to 180 days, and by our definition, they're now in compliance with the 180 days as in any other waiver.
Because I think sometimes I start counting how many days are teachers away from students. That is different. I mean, that's interesting and important because of what they're doing. But for me, the real thing is how many days are kids in class with teachers? 174, 176 here, and then what are we doing with the 4 left to take it to 180? Is that meaningfully tied to improving student achievement? So that's the way that I look at it.
Holly? Oh, okay. Dan? And then Judy.
I'm going to apologize in advance, but, and I'm sure I've asked this before, or I'm sure you've answered it before, but again, I'm a little bit lost as to what is the basis by which we're approving these things? Does it sound like a prudent use of time? Do the intended benefits correlate with what they say is the plan? I just like a little bit of help to say, what really is what really are the criteria, if any, or is this just a visceral reaction?
Well,
Go ahead.
I think I would respond in two ways, Board Member Plunk. First, the statute that created this waiver authority in the first place says, which is 28A 305 140, says that the purpose of the waiver program, the sentence is a rather tortured one, as those who spent time with it know, says on the basis that the waiver is necessary or needed to design an educational program to enhance the program for all students. In other words, I mean, it's a hard sentence to read, much less to say, which I didn't succeed in doing just now. But the purpose is to waive basic education requirements. And it's not just a 180-day school year, but it's actually a span of basic education requirements in 28A, 150, for the purpose of enhancing the educational program of students. The intent of the legislature was, as best one can discern it from the language, that the waiving of the requirements as requested should provide an educational benefit to the students that would not accrue were the district to adhere to the 180 days in this case. And then in Rule WAC 180-18040, because that statute required the State Board of Education to establish criteria for evaluating the need for the waiver.